such a big-bodied animal.
It is absolutely pissing down. I think it's time to go back to the hut. I'm getting wet. Good morning, Dime. Very nearly 4:30 in the morning on the 1st of April, and the 2021 Raw is very, very nearly in full swing. I am fully packed up and ready to leave the shed, headed for what I call Fallow Deer paradise. I go hunting on this property like 2, maybe 3 times a year, and the last time I was at the property, I had a conversation with the landowner and I said to him, if you were me and you wanted the best chance to try and sneak up on a croaking buck, when would you be on your farm? His reply to my question was, Nathan, if you were here between the 1st and the 10th of April, I guarantee you at some point you're gonna hear a croaking buck. So I'm doing just that. I'm staying in the hut from the 1st being today, until the 10th. And of course, the dream over those coming days is to let the air out of a big mature fallow buck. I'm yet to knock over any deer in 2021, so there will be a few meat animals getting taken also. But for the first few days, I will have what is described as buck tunnel vision. Today's plan is a real simple one. Get myself and all of my gear into the hut and organised as soon as I possibly can. Then I'll put all my tree hunting gear in my pack and search the farm looking for a fresh scrape made by a big mature buck. If I can find a scrape, then I'll climb a tree in bow range of the scrape and just relax there till it gets dark. And I will be quietly praying that a big buck makes an appearance. It was a full-on rush to get set up this time round. I was at the hut and big black clouds were rolling in and I could hear thunder, and I heard on the radio on the drive up this morning that there was a forecast of hail. So I got up the tree real quick and checked this out. Nato's got an umbrella for tree hunting that Kevin from Advanced Archery was so very kind enough to give me. Thank you, Kevin. Not only did I have to rush to get set up, but I managed to set up in a tree with 4 deer in bow range, or not bow range, but 4 deer definitely with an eye shot. I'm looking at them right now out in the paddock. And I managed to get up in the tree without spooking them, and to be honest, I don't know how that happened, but I'll take it. Sitting in a tree watching deer doesn't happen very much for me. So yeah, I got a big scrape down here. I got a bush just over here that's been completely totaled with antlers, and there's another scrape on the other side of the deer fence, but the other side of that deer fence, even though there's holes all through it, it's the neighbour's property. If a big buck comes and visits this scrape today, I'm fully set. He's not going to get my wind. It doesn't matter which way it goes. My wind was blown and still is blowing straight to those deer, and they ain't getting it, so it is all good. Gonna sit back in the tree for the afternoon and enjoy the rain. That is awesome. The deer don't even care. The does will get a pass today, but that ain't gonna last very long. I want some meat. The umbrella's good, but it's not that good. It is absolutely pissing down. I think it's time to go back to the hut. I'm getting wet. Can't say I'm not having fun. The rain has stopped, so I'm going to go climb back in that tree for about an hour, and then like 10 minutes, 15 minutes before it gets dark, I'm just going to jump down and go to a high point and just scan the whole other side of the farm in the hopes of seeing a big buck that I can hunt tomorrow. I love seeing deer. I have hunted my ass off this year and I have seen very few deer. So today, to see all the deer that I've seen is just like... I got the hugest smile on my face, and you never know, a big mature buck might just come and touch up this pad now that it's rained. Well, I reckon I've had just about as good a start to this trip as I could have possibly imagined. Deer come in right on dark, a big mature doe, a fawn, and I'm guessing her yearling a spiker. The doe ended up sitting down like 5, maybe 10 meters away from the scrape that I was sitting over, and I was just like, oh, here we go. She's sitting there waiting for the buck to come to his scrape. So I'm sitting there in total panic, thinking that this huge buck's gonna turn up, and then I just hear crash, 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 bang, you know, carrying on its antler smashing something, and I turn around behind me and there's a deer on the other side of the deer fence just absolutely hammering this tree. I reckon that buck is the buck that's making the scrape that I was sitting over, but there was a scrape on both sides of the fence and he ended up smashing the crap out of that tree and then walking the other way, and I couldn't film him, that it was too low light for my phone. I could see him perfectly, like it was a real good buck, but my phone was struggling to see it. I'm hoping that you can hear his antlers smashing the tree at least. Welcome to day number 2 of Nato's huge buck hunt. I woke up at 2 o'clock this morning. I went to bed real early, I was knackered, but I woke up at 2 o'clock this morning, went out and stood on the deck and listened for like half an hour, and I've heard croaks from multiple directions, but it's quiet as quiet outside at the moment. No wind. There is supposed to be some wind at some point pretty soon, but at the moment it is quiet as quiet. So needless to say, I am jacked for this one. The wind has been pretty much perfect all morning. It's been blowing straight back down the way I came up here to the tree. But then as the sun's come up, it started to play up a little bit and started pulling this way and then started pulling up that basin. And that basin was full of deer. They got my wind and then went charging down into the bush down here. All the while, there's been a buck croaking on and off just down in the low point down here. The wind will be swirling down there, so I wasn't too worried about going and chasing after him. But when those deer spooked off, I thought, oh, I might as well go and have a go. I'm not going to go tree hunting or anything down there, so if I blow the area out, it doesn't matter. It won't be long and I'll be getting out of this tree and we'll go down and see if we can get close to that croaking buck. But like I said, I reckon the wind's going to be swirling. Can you hear him? Just typical. As soon as I get out of the tree, that buck shuts up. It's all good. I think I'll make my way back to the hut. You know, the wind's doing some crazy stuff when the deer are running towards you. Poor buggers. They're in total panic down there. It is pack up time and I'm headed back just up behind the hut to the tree where I seen the big buck yesterday. So the plan is to just sit in that tree until it gets dark and hope like crazy that that big buck comes back in like he did last night on my side of the fence and gives me a shot. Don't know who they are. I only just clicked to the fact that those two dudes are staying at the hut for the next couple of nights, and they just walked past my rut like 5 meters away from it, so there's a shitload of ground scent there, and they are probably going to walk back past there right on dark when I'm hoping a big buck to come in. So massive change of plans. Nato's on the ground missioning around for the last 2 hours of daylight, hoping that what do you call it, stroke of bad luck turns out to be the best thing that happened to me on this entire trip. Big buck might just go down yet. This feels perfect. The wind is coming straight out of here, going this way. I've got a beat down trail in front of me here at 15 meters. The deer come out there, follow the trail through all the way up out into the paddocks. That tree there is 20 meters away. Anything on this side of that tree is done. A deer came around the corner and picked me up straight away, so I've moved up a little bit. I got a heap of crap between me and where they come out, and they won't be able to see me until I can shoot them this time. Come on, Nato. There has been a bit of a lack in my filming because of the boys staying at the hut. Nato feels a bit stupid talking to his phone with them there and filming and stuff. So yeah, the filming is going to be a little bit broken or whatever you want to call it for the next couple of days. But I will endeavour to keep filming my hunts because I love doing it. Fully set up, a little bit late this morning, but fully set up, ready to go. I've hunted this tree before. It is an awesome little pinch point on the farm, an hourglass effect going on here. There's a deer fence. There's a deer fence on this corner of this paddock here. And when I say deer fence, it's an old deer fence. The deer can get through it, but they seem to channel on this side of the fence because there's bush and there's cover. There's a big swamp out behind me. So again, the deer are going around the swamp, going around this fence, and they pinch right here. I have an 8-meter shot to the corner of the deer fence, so there is no excuses for a bad shot here. I would love to be in a tree further this way, but it just doesn't work. Wind at the moment is perfect. Well, last time I checked, the wind was perfect. Yeah, wind is perfect. Coming straight out of here. There's a huge pine block on this side of me. For whatever reason, the deer spend a lot of their day out there, and then they filter onto the farm to get the grass in the evening times, as fallow deer do. But they're also filtering from grass on the neighbour's paddock out this side, and then for whatever reason using here to get back into the pine block as well. So the boys are hunting the other side of the farm. I just heard a shot before, so they may very well have a buck on the ground. They're here hunting big bucks as well. So I'm just going to chill out in this tree for most of the day as long as the wind will hold. And if the wind doesn't hold, then I'm going to go and do some ground missions. Fallow deer were croaking last night. Nothing going too crazy, but there is a buck croaking out this way for off and on for the whole night, and he may very well filter back this way. I can hear that buck croaking now. Awesome. I think it might be the pheasant roar too.
Well, that's that. It's been a pretty quiet morning on the deer front, but I reckon that spot this afternoon should be a go. So I will be back this afternoon after lunch has been had. I'm back in the tree that I hunted this morning, and I'm going to stay here till dark. It's 5:20 now. I got here at 4 o'clock, and I haven't been able to talk because there were deer. There were deer in the swamp behind me. I ninjaed in up the little trail here and somehow managed to get into my tree without spooking them out. And then an hour later, over an hour later, they made their way down along here. And the closest deer, well, all of the deer walked past through a gap that'd be like 8 or 9 meters. Could have smashed the first big doe and the second big doe, but then somehow they got my wind down there, which doesn't make any sense, and then spooked back the way they came. But anyway, now that they've gone, I can talk. So pretty simple plan. Wind is good. It's been good the whole time. Well, other than those deer getting my wind down there, but I think any deer coming from this way is not going to get my wind, and any deer coming from that way, coming this way, isn't going to get my wind. My wind's going straight off this corner. So yeah, I am here until dark, back to the hut and plan for tomorrow. So quiet that I can hear a moorpork way over there. Another morning is about to begin, and there are bucks croaking in 3 different directions. The boys that are staying in the hut, they've taken off after one that's croaking hardcore over the back here. I think I'm going to stay in the pine block this morning. I seen a buck yesterday here in the pine block, real good buck. Well, real good buck for me. So I'm going to hang around in the pine block. I've got a little thermal camera, so I'm just going to scan the pine block, try and locate an animal, put the thermal camera away, and then use the binos to identify. And hopefully that buck that I seen yesterday somewhere in the pine block, and I can find him. That's my little plan anyway. Talk about intense. My thermal showed me a heat signature just up in here, and multiple heat signatures, like more than one. So I put the thermal down, came down the ridge, was sitting on the ridge up there, and then heard a deer down here and thought, oh, they've moved down. So I came down right around the ridge, got right to here. He went up the ridge and stopped perfectly at 30 meters, and I don't normally want to take a 30-meter shot. I will, but everything has to be perfect, and everything was perfect. He gave me the perfect broadside shot, and I let an arrow fly, and the arrow stuck in him, so I've hit bone, which doesn't make any sense, because that big heavy arrow, if it hit the backbone, would just smash him and he'd drop. If I went above his backbone, I'm sure that arrow, heavy arrow, would just go straight through him. So I don't know what the hell I've hit. It is so quiet today. It's easy to get to like 50 meters from a deer, but to get to 25, I had to drop my pack like 5 meters up the hill. Just taking my pack off sounded like I was driving a truck through the bush, you know. Shot felt good, pin was good. Didn't snap the shot, nice release, pin was steady, peeps were good, bow was level. Just not quite sure where that hit. I'm going to get my gear back on my back, go up the hill, see if I can get eyes on him with the binos, and then come up with a plan from there. I just let 2 arrows fly at my target at 30 meters, and the bow's good and I'm good. Both of those shots would have been a dead deer at 30, so that gives me huge confidence. I'm still a little bit concerned over the fact that the arrow didn't fly right through that buck, so, or spiker, whatever you want to call it. Anyway, taking no chances. I'll just go to where I shot him, see what blood I have, and then follow up incredibly slowly, use my new binos for their intended purpose, and if I have to shoot it, I have to shoot it, but I'm willing to make a bet that he's done. I can't understand why the arrow didn't go right through. If I hit the good spot, then it would have gone clean through, so we'll play it on the safe side. Found an arrow, no blood. Definitely gonna have to shoot this one again if I'm lucky enough to find him. Arrow must have gone above his backbone. It's the only thing that makes any sense. I keep saying to everybody that I'll talk to that I don't want to shoot at anything over 20 meters. So why did I shoot at that one at 30? Well, I would say that I'd shoot at something over 20 meters if the shot was perfect, and I felt the shot was perfect. And I felt like I made a good shot, and my bow was on. I haven't found a single drop of blood since finding the arrow and before finding the arrow. I've just been through the 2 basins in the pine block that have cover, and if he was in one of those thick areas, I would have spooked him out and I would have been able to shoot him. There's no question on that. I went along the bottom of the pine block to all the places where the deer go underneath the fences. Didn't find any fresh marks from a spiker or any blood. So I don't know where he's gone, but he is gone. Each time I find myself in this situation, I try and learn from it, but I don't feel like I've done anything wrong. In the past, I've snapped a shot, the bow wasn't level, I didn't have the range right, or something led to wounding the animal or missing the animal, and then I've made a rule to kind of learn from it. Well, this time I don't feel like I've done anything wrong. I made a perfect shot. I drew back on that animal with the intention of letting down, but everything was perfect. He was broadside, standing there, 30 meters, pin was steady, bow was level, peep was good, everything was good. I didn't snap the shot, so the only thing I can think, well, yes, I still could have made a bad shot, but I went back to the hut and shot at my target and made 2 good shots with the 2 boys that are hunting here watching me, so I had the same pressure that I had on me when I was shooting at that spiker. So what do I learn from this experience? I learned from this experience that if I shoot at a fallow deer over 20 meters, there's a chance it could jump the string, and I can't control that. So from this day forward, there is no such thing as the perfect shot over 20 meters. If a fallow deer is outside 20 meters, then I'm not going to shoot at it, because there's a chance it could jump the string and I'll end up with what I had today. So yeah, that's it. That's all I can give you. I feel like a bucket of crap. The animal's going to live, but it doesn't make me feel any better. I shot a buck in exactly the same place, just above the backbone, through the finger bones, and I seen that buck the very next day, and there was nothing wrong. You wouldn't have even known that he got shot. And then I shot that same buck 2 months later in the raw, and he had more damage from fighting with other bucks than he had from my arrow, put it that way. Back to the hut, eat, and then move forward, find a buck and kill it. Here we go again. I'm going back to the same tree that I was in last night and yesterday morning. Gonna hunt that spot. There has been a huge change of plans. Before I was going to go and tree hunt the spot that I hunted yesterday morning and last night. I came and checked here because from where I was last night I heard a buck croak, just one time, but I heard a buck croak just down here. So I came and had a look down here and I found a scrape. It doesn't have any fresh sign on it, but there's heaps of buck shit here. There was a croak just here last night, and that fence right there's the boundary fence. And there's been a buck croaking right on the boundary line to this property to the next one for like ever since I've been here, so 4 days. So I'm hoping that this spot, well, I actually feel that this spot is way better than that one. When I was coming back down here to set up, there was a doe with her yearling right where in bow range of this tree. And while I was setting up, I had to saw some branches off the pine tree, which I hope Ross doesn't mind, but at the end of the day, that's what the pruners do, so I'm guessing I'm helping the tree in some way. Anyway, I was sawing the branches off and a deer came up behind me and then crashed off. The wind is coming perfectly off the grass out there, straight down into the swamp behind me. There's a mean game trail coming down the hill to here, and then the game trail leads down into the swamp on the corner over there, and then out to where that buck's been croaking. It's 20 metres to that tree and 20 metres to that tree, so anything on this side of that line is in bow range. This could turn out to be really, really good. Here we go again. Things have changed. There are bucks now croaking everywhere. I've got 2 croaking straight across from the hut, and I've also heard antler clashing over there, so they're having a go at each other. There's one croaking, I believe it's in the pine block, only a couple of 100 metres down this way. The wind's blowing that way, which is a bit shit, but there's one in the pine block real close croaking. And I seen an animal in the pine block a couple of days ago, and if it's that buck, it's all good. My plan this morning is just to go straight up on the hill behind the hut, see if I can hear this one in the pine block going, and see if I can get around him. Coffee back at the hut after an epic morning chasing a croaking buck. It was so much fun. He was actually out in the paddock on a scrape. By the time I got my phone onto my binos, he'd come into the bush, into a little thick bit of bush, but he came into the bush right in front of me. It was just insane, and I was trying to rattle him out and rubbing antlers on sticks and stuff, and every time I did it he'd croak, so I knew I was kind of getting to him, and I thought sooner or later he was going to come out, and he did come out, but I'm not quite sure what happened. He might have got my wind. Wind felt really good. I'm not too sure. Anyway, he came back around this way towards the hut. I heard him croak a few more times, so came back to the hut, and I'm hoping that he's going to use that pad again and be doing the same thing tomorrow morning that he was doing this morning, and if he is,
that would be awesome, because I'm going to go down and get my tree gear and set up as close to that thick piece of bush as I can, hoping that there's some kind of shot down into the thick stuff, even if I could just have a shot to the fence line, because when I rattled antlers and smashed sticks and stuff, he came to the fence line and went crazy. So if he does that tomorrow and I'm in a tree there with a shot, then that would be awesome. So yeah, gonna go set that up, then come back to the hut again, get organized. Gonna do a ground mission later this afternoon to try and find some meat. I really want to bowl a doe or two over, and then yeah, I'm going to race back to the hut again and again get organised. Going to go set up on the edge of that pine block. A big buck came out of that pine block last night when I was up in the tree down here, and he came out in good daylight. So if he does that again tonight, that'll be awesome as well. But I've heard 2 or 3 shots come out of that pine block today, and 2 or 3 single shots. So I'm guessing a few deer have met their maker in there today, and I'm hoping it's not those bucks, because otherwise there's no way they're going to be coming out tonight, right?
Alright, I'm all set up. I've just brushed myself in a bit more. No deer will be able to see me until they're in the window, and I should already be at full draw. A big buck came out of the hole right here last night when I was in my tree way over there. And if he comes out that hole tonight, he's 10 metres in front of me. And if he comes out the second hole, the furthest hole away, it's bang on 20 metres. If the does will come out, then I'm hoping like crazy that the buck will come. Here we go. I am already pooing in my pants.
Well, my plan very, very, very nearly worked. That big buck and those does made it to the fence, and for whatever reason they just wouldn't come through the fence and give me a shot. They just stayed on the other side of the fence, running around in circles. I could hear does constantly me, 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 and just footprints running everywhere. So I knew there was a buck there, and eventually he croaked and started croaking more and more and more as it got closer to dark. But yeah, they wouldn't step through and give me a shot. It's bedtime. Tomorrow's another day, and I'm just going to get straight back into them. Good morning time. Nato's a bit excited this morning. I'm going to go up the back of the hill behind the hut very soon and listen for croaking. Hoping like crazy the buck that I was chasing yesterday is yet again croaking on his pad out in the paddock, and that he moves into that little bit of bush where I've got my tree stand set up. The idea being to rattle antlers and drag him to the edge of that block so I can get a shot. Yesterday when I rattled, I dragged 2 spikers to the fence edge, or maybe the same spiker twice. Either which way, anything inside 20 metres today is going to get an arrow flung at it. Although in saying that, if there was a croaking buck right there, that's going to be a little bit hard to do. But anyway, from now on, deer inside 20 metres are in big, big trouble.
He's out. Well, today hasn't gone exactly to plan. The buck was croaking, he was on his pad in the paddock. Wind's good, got up in the tree, and then he croaked and moved the opposite direction and ended up in a thick bit of scrub just over here, and there's a lot of open ground between me and there, so I think I'll leave him alone for today. So I'm going to get down, and for the rest of today, I'm going to go around and just do little setups and rattle antlers and try and draw spikers in, because it seems to be really good at bringing young animals in. It's not as effective as I was hoping it was going to be on big bucks. I think if the conditions were right, it would work. If you kind of got into that satellite area and you rattled up, or you used an antler and smashed something, a branch or a little bush or something, then I reckon it'd work, but it's not as effective as I was hoping, at least. So yeah, gonna go set up rattle antlers. First thing that gets inside 20 is gonna get it. Found a croaking buck on the property that I can hunt, but it's right on the boundary line to another big pine block. And there's a big hole in the fence just up there as well, so you never know your luck. I just spoke to deer, but I haven't put him off yet. Holy crap, look at that for a buck mark. You're not going to believe this one. I've been here for 10 minutes. I've set up my little camera arm and everything. And then I was setting my camera arm up, and there was a deer, a little buck, sitting on the ground in frame. I was looking at my phone and went, that's a deer, a white deer. And he's just sat there for another 5 minutes. Let me get my camera fully focused on him, pull my phone out of my pocket and start talking. That dude is not going to last very long at all. Alright, I am all set up. I've made myself a little scrape to stand on. The wind is perfectly blowing straight that way, and the deer are going to come from that way. I've got a tree out in front of me here that's 22 metres away, so anything on this side of that tree is inside 20 metres. All I've got to do now is sit back and wait until dark. Last night when I was up by that hole in the fence waiting for the buck to go through the fence, half an hour before dark, and actually it would be more than that, an hour before dark, 3 does came out this trail and went out in the paddock. And then half an hour later, 2 more does went down this trail and went out in the paddock. So if they do that tonight, they're coming home. Ross said to be here between the 1st and the 10th, and at some point it would go crazy. Today is the 6th, and something's changed. A switch has been flicked. All the bucks are just gone crazy. I got a buck. That buck, Croaking, he's 240 metres straight across from the hut. The one down the end of the hut block is going nuts as well. That's the one I've been chasing for the last 2 days. The one that I went after away on the back corner of the farm, he's going right now too. And then there's another one down here in the swamp. I think I could sit out here all night listening to this. Tomorrow I have no plan. All I'm going to do is run after croaking bucks. I've got probably I think I can do 2 more days. Today's the 6th. I can stay to the 10th if I want, but I got to go make a fishing show, so stay tuned. It just might happen yet. As has been for this trip, this morning's plan was foiled. No buck croaking down there. It's a buck croaking way up here, but I've just figured out that he's still in the pine block. There's deer running everywhere, and a yearling just runs straight into me, and I stuck an arrow in it, and I'm pretty sure it's dead right there on the deer fence edge of the covenant block. I just got to go check my arrow. It came out of the deer just here somewhere, and I'll just check that for blood. Nato gets one with the bow. The arrow is blooded. Yes! I got one with the bow. Wicked. So happy. It's right on the fence line just there. It ran down and sat down and then got up and went onto the fence line. Looking at that arrow, it's toast. Well, if you're going to eat one, those are the ones you want to eat, right? I couldn't be happier, to be fair. Beautiful little yearling, good shot. I'm going to carry on after this buck though. I can get the motorbike right to here obviously, and then take it back and hang it in the tree and gut it and skin it. Well, those two idiots aren't going to help my chances, are they? Shut up. Gotta love that. The buck pads here are just in the middle of the paddocks, right out in the open. The bucks come out right on dark onto the pads, pretty much croak all night, and then gap it back into the thick stuff before the sun comes up. And then they just spend their days in the swamps and all the thick ass crap where I just can't get near them. To get to 70 metres from deer is pretty easy. To get from 70 to 50, you know, it's not so bad. To get from 50 to 30 starts getting tricky. And then to get from 30 to 20, that's when you know you're doing good, when you can get to 20. But check this out, I could sit here and have a conversation with my mate about all the deer in the paddock. No problem at all. Maybe I can get a buck on a trail camera coming through there because I can't get one with a bow and arrow. I can't even film one. My plan this morning was to utilize an easterly wind that was forecast, and guess what? No wind, none whatsoever. It was never going to be easy ground hunting, but I ran into a spiker that was just coming my way. I ranged a spot on the ground that was 22 meters, and with the elevation that I had, it was a 20-meter shot set on my sight. The spiker came in and stopped perfectly broadside, gave me all the time I needed to make a shot, and I made, in my head, a good shot, but hit that spiker high, just like I hit the other spiker, but dropped it on the spot. My broadhead took out the top of one lung, but cutting a long story short, I put a second arrow in it because I think that's the most ethical thing to do in that situation. So I've already sorted that spiker out. It's in the chiller. Made my way back to the hut, and I'm right now about to leave to go and do a tree stand hunt for the afternoon.
There's very, very little wind at the moment. The wind, east wind, is supposed to get stronger and stronger as the day goes on. But for now, it's really hard creeping around, so I'm going to go jump in a tree. It's a tree that I've hunted before. In fact, it's the only tree that I've shot a deer out of with my saddle. So, hopes are high. Anyway, gonna get over there, get up in this tree, get sorted, sit back and wait and hope that today there's just as much movement in early afternoon as there was yesterday, because there were bucks running around the farm looking for does, and that would be a real good place to sit, I reckon, and catch a buck out that's looking for does, because I've got heaps of scrub and cover on both sides of me, and the bit where I sit's just a little bit open, it's clear. So yeah, let's do it.
Should have been here half an hour ago. Would have had another spiker. I'll give it till 3 o'clock, then I'm going to go after him. Just gone 3 o'clock. I'm going to go and have a crack at this buck. He keeps croaking, he's been in there, hasn't moved in the same area the whole time I've been in that tree, and I've been in that tree for 3 hours, so there's a good chance that he ain't going to go anywhere in the next little while. It isn't going to be easy. It's pretty thick and crappy in there, but I think where he is, there is a little open piece. It's worth a crack. If I fail, that tree's fully set up and I'll sit in that tree until dark. I'm pretty convinced that if I sit in that tree until dark, I'm going to see something. So I can't sit in that tree though while that buck's croaking and do nothing about it, right? It's what I came here to do, so you never know your luck. There's a heap of does, but I don't know where the buck is. Well, that was a really big, intense stalk for a really little buck. Just a little 8-point. He had a hot doe and was chasing her around. In the end, the doe got pissed off and ran up the fence line. I wasn't going to hang around there anyway. There were a heap of does and a couple of spikers left there, but where they were, it's just a hard spot. I'd spend all night trying to get a shot there and may never get it. And I got a tree saddle spot set up, so I'm real keen to shoot one out of my tree saddle after getting 2 on the ground. So I'm getting back to my tree saddle spot, get back in the tree and see what happens. Good morning, Dime. The wind started swirling in my tree last night, so I gave up and came back to camp. This morning, there's no wind. It is unbelievably quiet. That buck is like 200 plus meters away. I think every buck on the farm is going to hear me trying to get to my tree this morning. But it is the last morning and I've got to give it a go, so I will do just that. I'll do my best to sneak around there, get up in that tree. What a stunning buck. That right there is a buck of a lifetime for me. I have been bow hunting now for 7-ish years and I hunt fallow bucks. It's what I love to do, fallow deer. I've shot one red deer and the other 30 something have been fallow, but this one by far takes the cake. So unbelievably stoked. Such a big bodied animal, big mature bodied animal with a great rack to boot. I just can't believe it. Just can't believe it. Day number 9 of a 10-day trip. Arrow went straight down in the middle of his back, came out mid-body on his belly, which is why there was no blood trail whatsoever, but fatal hit. Totally stoked. Time to do the hard yards. Be a butcher and then go see my mate Simon. My mate Simon just happens to be what I believe to be one of the very best taxidermists that ever lived. And so very happy to have him as a friend, and to be able to have this guy immortalized by him is a real privilege. Coming to see you soon, Simon. Cheers, my brother. Thanks for watching my videos. Can't wait to make another one. God, it feels good.